Hi, my lovelies. I thought today we would cover a little bit about connecting with your deck. Um, it's all very well and good getting a deck off the shelf. However, you will find as you practice, you will become, more drawn to using one deck over the other. And the best way in which you can facilitate this and to build that relationship with your deck is to go through a little bit of a connection, I suppose, ritual, for want of a better word. So we're going to walk through some things that I practice today to connect with my decks, and we will also talk about a deck interview spread, which can really be quite interesting. Obviously, this all comes from an animistic viewpoint, but the deck interview spreads can bring up quite a lot of interesting ideas that you maybe wouldn't have thought of in relation to building a relationship to your decks. So I'm going to flip the camera and we will go through a few methods of connecting with our decks. Okay, so one of the first things that obviously we have practiced in the tarot course is looking at the visuals of the cards themselves. Let's see if I can bring this down a little bit. So completely disregarding for a moment the numerology, the elements, let's just have a look at the visual representations of the cards. Now, if you get a new deck, I tend to keep everything in order and go through them one by one, for two reasons. First of all, if everything's in order, it's easy to put back, and if you find that, within the first run through of the deck, you feel like the deck isn't for you, you can easily just send it back without too much fuss, and hopefully get a return. So I tend to flip through every card I get and look at the images and relying on my intuitive hit from them. So if I can easily see what's going on with the cards, if there's any that I'm not too sure about, I will pull them off to the side and I will come back to this pile later on. So I'm just gonna, for the sake of the lesson, the study, we'll pull them out. So once you have your pile of cards that are you're a little bit uncertain with, now at this point you would really look at the imagery and go through them. Talking out loud is always a good thing. Sorry, I don't know why I keep gravitating towards the, I need to move my chair. So talking out loud is a good thing because it gets you really thinking about and talking through your thoughts and your process and how you're searching for imagery through the card. For instance, with the Three of Swords, a controversial card, as you know, we have got the clouds in the background and rain, which tends to symbolize, a dreary, rainy, I suppose, heart space. Maybe it's more of a negative. It's not sunny, it's not optimistic. So but it's also not black. So maybe there's this confusion, or things are starting to darken. So we have the clouds, we have the rain, we have the heart and the three swords through the heart. So now, obviously, this could be heartbreak, which a lot of people refer to as heartbreak. It could also be, if we're now looking at pulling in the numerology and the elemental references, this could also be logic of the swords, the intellect or the mind, taking priority over the cups or the emotions or the connections that you feel. So theoretically, this heart could also be a cup, but I suppose that wouldn't make for good imagery, right? So it's a case of going through and seeing what ones you can really mesh with. In this, we've got what looks like two children an older one giving a younger one a cup. We've got flowers. Each cup has got flowers and growth, and you know, there's this nurturing kind of vibe to this card. There's the village in the background, so we're talking about home life, maybe the home space. They're young, so maybe the space you grew up in. It could be an opportunity to reflect back. So it's pulling in everything you can see within the card, what's happening in the card. There's people in the background, which suggests like an everyday active environment, and seeing if you can draw any new information from the cards in relation to what you already know, build upon your knowledge base with the cards. So here we see the Seven of Wands. We see someone riding, holding a wand with a wreath on. He has a wreath on his head. There's people in the background. They look like they're cheering or celebrating. His horse is like robed. So obviously this is some sort of, not ceremonial, but this seems like it's for show. It's certainly not raining, so this robe on the horse is for show. And we can start pulling in that idea of public celebration, but also to this person, so an idea of public acknowledgement perhaps. So we can pull in the imagery with what we already know. So let's pull out something from a different deck. So this is the Light Seers tarot, which I happen to have on my desk. And let's pull out these cards again. So what are we looking at here? The Six of Cups, the Three of Swords, and the Seven of Wands. The Six of Cups. Seven of Wands is there. Three, what are we looking for? A 3 and a 6. Six of Pence, no. Have I gone past it? Seven of Pence. I'm just probably all shouting at the screen right now saying, you've gone past it. Okay. Six of Cups. Six of Cups. And then Three of Swords. Three of Swords. There we go. Okay, so when you obviously evolve up from the Rider-Waite-Smith and you buy a new deck, you're going to be in a position where you're looking at images and how they are represented differently by the various artists that have created the deck. So we're looking at different people's perspectives and viewpoints and interpretations, I suppose. Okay, so I'm just going to push those off for a minute. So the Three of Hearts. She's obviously in agony. She's not very happy. This is very dark, very blustery, very windy. It looks windy. There's a lot of marks around here that suggest this movement in the air. Her hair is moving. So it's a very windy, dark, blustery day. We've got the crows in the background in the tree. Maybe that's some sort of sense of foreboding. We've got this broken heart that's being patched up, but also being pulled apart by different elements. So, you know, she's holding on to a part, the tree's holding on to a part. There's sections of it attached to other areas that we can't see. So this sort of suggests to me that the heart is not allowed, or the emotion or the connection that is involved in the situation is not able to thrive and survive, because it's in a space where there are different ideas and different things. We are looking at the swords, so different ideas and mentalities and mindsets and perspectives that are pulling it apart, and they are not meeting, they are not harmonious. So maybe this is what I would call a relationship tiebreaker, right? Oh, excuse me, guys. So that's the Three of Swords and how you would look at that one. Let's look at the what is typically known as the nostalgia card. We have a boy and his dog, and then we also have a man and his dog, and then these cups leading between the pictures, which suggests that this child is this man, and he's looking back, he's thinking about past times. So this is very nostalgia based. So this is a memory or a thought, a new what's the word I'm looking for? Reminiscing about times that you have had, and in relationships that you have had, not love relationships particularly, but connections that you've had that have sort of guided you, that are still with you, that are strong. And we've got a lot of pink in the card, which suggests emotional connection and love. Maybe not passion because it's not red, but there's certainly that aspect of love involved. We've got a little bit of yellow, so there's happiness there. So yeah, you can see how the cards have been translated a little bit differently, and how you would maybe pull more nostalgia out of this one, whereas this is, I would say, more along the lines of your childhood home space, but there's also this nurturing vibe in this as well. So you can see how different decks might translate into different interpretations of a meaning. And then here we've got the, oh no, this is the 6. I've pulled out the wrong one, sorry. Let me just flick through the 6 of Wands. 6 of Wands, here we go. We've got that one. So the 6 of Wands here, we can see we've still got the wand with the wreath on. We've got the hands in the background all reaching up and celebrating. It does look like she's on stage. We've got the spotlights on her. So this is certainly a public acknowledgement or a public reward vibe going on here. So once you've gone through your deck and you can really, you know, if at that point you still haven't been able to translate what's on the card, then you go to the book that comes with it, if there is a book that's with it. There are some decks that don't have a book, in which case it's time for a little old internet research or books that you already have in your collection, and see if you can draw any different meanings to work out the iconography and the symbology in the card, presented to you in the card. Okay, so next it's a case of, you know, if you've got a deck that's come to you, it's been manufactured, it's gone through the factory, it's been printed, it's been handled by other people or machines, you know, it's been packaged by people, it's then gone through the post office and been thrown about a bit by the time it gets to you, then you're looking at, or certainly I would be looking at, cleansing my deck of energies that it might have picked up on its way to you. In my head, it's no different to the energy that you put into someone's birthday, you know, or making a birthday cake. If you're making someone's birthday cake and you are full of hatred and anger or worry, it's not really going to be the best space to be making and creating a birthday cake for someone. There's going to be a little bit of angst passed on through the cake. So in my head, I want to make sure that we are getting rid of the factory settings, and we are starting it fresh so it can pick up on our personal energy, and relate to, you know, the energies, the good energies, and or any energies that are from you and no one else. I do this typically by, so I've got a candle here. I typically run my deck through a candle, and before a reading, I will certainly hold the whole deck over a candle. But I suppose it's an introduction and introducing it to the elements. This could also be seen if you're of a spiritual perspective. This could be a consecration of your deck. I tend to run it through a flame or incense. You can also do it with sound. If you have a bell or a singing bowl, you can sit a singing bowl on top of it and allow the vibrations to penetrate and push out any energy. I do have a bell I use, it's just not a very big one, so I feel like I need a good solid ringing for that sort of thing. So yeah, there's the idea of cleansing and pushing energy out of the deck. A lot of people knock, I knock before a reading, sometimes to wake the cards up or wake the energy up in the cards, sometimes to release. I also bang the deck on the table when I'm shuffling to release the energy out into the earth. But the idea is, you know, if you're introducing it to the elements, then there's a general sense that it's being cleansed. Other people like to put it on a bed of salt or leave it on the windowsill for a full moon or a new moon, depending on, you know, what you're trying to do with it, so it can get the moon's energy. But the general idea is to release those factory settings. And then after that, I like to imbue them. I think you need to energize them with your own energy. For me, I shuffle, 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 shuffle all the time. If it's a really new deck, I will leave it out. If I've got space, I will leave the cards out in my space and lay them down. So as I walk past them, as they're in my space, they're collecting my energy, but also as I'm walking past them, I can look at them, reflect upon them, pick them up. So that is certainly something that I have done in the past. Obviously, it's dependent on whether you've got the space for it, but just leaving them out in your space is a good idea. Some people sleep with their deck under their pillow for a few days, or on a certain day that's relevant to what they're trying to do. Other people breathe on them. I certainly breathe on mine. Some people breathe to imbue the cards with their own energy and spirit. I tend to breathe away any energy, especially after knocking. I will knock and breathe out anything that's already in the deck, that's holding onto the deck. But generally, I think shuffling them, looking at them, leaving them out in your space, certainly cleansing them, I think is quite important if you want the cards to not be pulling upon any energies that are already present in them. And then, depending on how you feel, depending on whether you subscribe to the animistic mindset or beliefs, you can then do an deck interview. So there are plenty out there. I'm going to show you the one I use, but this certainly introduces the idea of a deck having its own personality. And you can start with a deck interview. You can start seeing a deck as a person, which I think is helpful if you're, especially if you're reading for others or you're reading for certain topics. You can then, you know, dedicate a deck to a topic. So I have decks that I only use for shadow work. I have decks that I only use for ancestral connection. I have decks that I only use for grief work or heavy, sad or negative energies. So the idea of the deck interview is to allow you to form a connection or develop the connection that you have with your deck to the point where you can you know when to use it. I think for me it's a little bit like, I think of it as like pairing certain herbs with certain meats if you're cooking, or certain wines with certain cuisines. It's that sort of idea. So I know that I would use this deck for this sort of reading or this sort of topic. So the deck interview that I use is I pull out a card for what personality the deck has. What are the strengths of the deck? I haven't shuffled very well, so you've got to just go with me on it. This is purely for instructive purposes only. What are the strengths? What are the limits or the weaknesses of the deck? And how the deck will help me grow as a reader and as a person, depending on, you know, what you plan to use it for. And then I ask 3 more questions. So second row. Sorry guys, I've got quite bad lighting here. I'll sort that out for next time. When should I call on you for guidance? So we're talking to the deck now as a person. When should I call on you for guidance? What is the best way to work with you? What will our relationship be like? And then you could stop there. I mean, that will give you a really good grounding into the deck and its energies. And then I don't have space, so I'm just going to lay them on top. I have pulled 2 more at the bottom usually. What is your opinion of me? And what do I need to bring to the table to work with you? So this can be really interesting and flow like water, or it could be really confusing and you might need to pull clarifying cards. I think it's one of those, you know, you have to play a bit of trial and error here, see what works for you. You might not use all questions. That's the one I use. And you will start building a picture of your decks as people, which I think really does allow you to build upon that connection. The one thing I will then say is, if you are, going back to dedicating decks for certain topics or certain readings, if you are planning on dedicating a deck, for me, I would go back to consecrating the deck or cleansing the deck. And as I'm consecrating or cleansing the deck, I will be asking it to provide, you know, certain aspects or allow me to speak truthfully in that, you know, genre that I want it to work in. So I do believe in asking nicely, especially when it comes to, well, in all instances, but I think when you're dealing with unseen, what's the word I'm looking for? When you're reading unseen energy, I think it's polite, right? So there are some people now that would take the deck after doing a deck interview and meditate with them based on the answers that they got from the spread. So, you know, if there's a particular problem or you're not really sure on how to interpret one of the answers that you got, or even just to take it a little bit further and see what comes up for you, you could then meditate at this point with the deck. If you're a daily meditator, then that shouldn't be a problem. If you're not, then, you know, it's not, none of this is required. It's down to your personal preferences. I am just giving you ideas for you to use yourself. So yeah, let me know how you get on, if you found this helpful. If you have any other ideas for connecting with decks, I would really like to know. Please share with everyone. I look forward to seeing you soon. Lots of love, light, and blessings.